Hi everyone. So if you didn't get a chance to come to the live version of the presentation for how to get organized with Google Drive, this is just a quick run through of the slide deck to understand what each of the slides may mean. So the first thing I'm going to start with is we can think of Google Drive to be a place to organize all of our paperwork, which happens to get out of control before we even realize we have got all of these papers. And unless you have a really good filing system, it's sometimes hard to find what you might be looking for. So this is an opportunity to do a virtual filing cabinet. So you might ask yourself, which email account should I use? Most of us might have a personal Gmail account. You could have a school Gmail account, which is called a G Suite, and you can set up your own Google account specifically for coaching, which is the only thing that you would be using this account for. I strongly suggest that that is something that you do, just because your personal email, you don't want to take a chance of mixing up any files or emails and sharing that with coworkers. When it comes to the school's G Suite, which again is a Gmail account, but it has a different domain name and people are part of that within the organization. So you might be at yourschoolnumber.com or .org. Even though it doesn't end with at gmail.com, it is still a Gmail account and has all of those capabilities. But they do call it a G Suite. And with the G Suite, it is restricted, so you won't be able to share documents and files with emails that don't have that same ending. So using a G Suite is something else I wouldn't consider doing, because even if you leave that school or organization, your files will be attached to that email. And it would be a little awkward to share things with another school if your email ends with a different school's email address, if that makes sense. So, the best advice I could give is setting up a new Gmail account. And once you set up a new Gmail account, there's a couple of different things you can do. So, the first thing I would think about is consider your name for your Gmail account. And it should be something fairly easy that you can share and repeat to people if they need to quickly jot it down or remember it to get in touch with you. Another thing that you're going to want to think about is setting up your signature in your Gmail account. So I can find my account right here. If I go to settings, which is this gear right here, and I go to see all settings, you'll notice if you keep scrolling down, there's a space where you can add a signature. So right here is where you would put in the protocol that we would use for our signature. If you'd like to put in a quote or a photo, you could do that as well. If you're adding a picture, the first time you're setting up the account, this is the place that you would be adding the picture. If you have an existing photo, you can change it. And the way that you do that is you right click on the photo. All right, so when you click the photo, right there you see a camera. And when you click that camera, there's a chance to drag a photo over and update it. So that's pretty much as all you need to know when you're setting up the Gmail account. This is a video that lets you know exactly more in detail how to do it. So once again, I strongly suggest that you set up a new Gmail account specifically for coaching. You give it your signature that you would have on your Department of Ed email account. And then you have an opportunity to share that with your teachers. And you can add it to your bookmarks like I showed you on this new tab up here. This way you can access it really quickly. So I went through the slide that talked about setting up a profile photo. For more details, you can click that video in that slide. The next slide talks about the Gmail signature, and that was found in settings as well. And now we're up to the part where we're going to talk about how you set up Google Documents. So a document is basically like a Word document. If you save it on your computer, it would end with .word, I believe. When you save it with Google, it ends with .doc. So keeping that in mind, a Google Doc is like typing into a Word document. So the first thing you would need to do a blank document is you click the new and you would select blank document. And here you have a blank Word document, and it has the same capability like a Microsoft Word document. You would name it up here and then you would type into it. The nice thing about Google Docs is once you do this, you don't have to save. Everything automatically saves for you. So keeping that in mind, you can also create new things like, oops, you can create new things like Google Sheets, and Sheets is the Google version of Excel. You can also create Google Slides, which the presentation is saved in, and that is the same as a PowerPoint. So anything that you'd like to create, you go up here and you click the plus. Moving along, there's a video on how you can create and name folders. So you'll notice that once you create a number of documents, the Google Drive can become very overcrowded. So the same way you wouldn't want a bunch of loose papers floating around on a desk, once you have things that belong together, you can create a folder for them. And that looks the same up here, where you would click New and select Folder. Once you select Folder, you can give the folder a name, Test Folder, which ended up right here. It automatically alphabetizes them for you. And then when you have your loose files or documents, you can just drag them right into your folder. If you want to get a little fancy and find a way to keep yourself a little bit more organized, you can color code it. So I have my test folder here. I'm going to right click and go to change color, and I could change the color of my folder. So something I did here was my 5 pillars of literacy plus writing. I labeled all of those, I changed all those colors to yellow. When it comes to anything to do with the school, I made those folders pink. When it comes to anything to do with universal literacy, I made those folders blue. Anything to do with working from home or blended learning, I did those as purple. And any other things that I find important, I just left them as gray. If they happen to be part of a group of things, I might, color those. But for right now, I just have things related to the school, universal literacy, and blended learning as different color folders. Something else that's interesting is you could add little emojis when you name your folders. So there is a website called emojipedia.com. And here you can search for various emojis. So I did a test one. Maybe I'll search for a pencil. And here I have a pencil. And all I need to do is click copy. And it's copied. When I go back to my Google Drive, if I right click, I can rename it. And here I could paste that pencil and call it my test folder. And there's little icons there. So we could also add icons as well, little emojis. So my 5 pillars all have the books on it. That's just a fun way to organize. So keeping this in mind, let me delete this one. I'm going to right click and remove it. You can keep all of your coaching documents organized in one place. And I did them here by school. And I did them by universal literacy. So if I look to universal literacy for the year 2019-20, when I open that up, I have the folders, everything pertaining to this school year. So I created a folder for all of my teachers. Even if they're not in a cycle with me, I just made a blank folder for them and I put their name in. And kindergarten, it gets organized by number and the K happens to go all the way at the end. So I put a 0 before it. It just helps with the labeling to keep them in order. So I have all my K teachers, all my first grade teachers with their grade, their class, and their name, and any other documents I might want to keep for them. Inside the teacher's documents, inside their folder, I could keep copies of things that I'm working on with them. So that's just something to keep in mind also. Cycle documents can also be organized in a folder. the same way you might do a paper document in a filing cabinet. And each cycle is in a separate folder. And then I have a folder for teachers that are not in the cycle. So that's a nice way to keep them organized also. Okay, so the next part you might be wondering is, how do I share files and documents? So if I have this template of a coaching document, I might want to share this with a teacher once I've started to fill it out. And really simply, you would go up here to the share and you would type in their name. And once you type in their name, I'll share it to my DOE. You're right there. It automatically sets it up. And then you would hit send. You can also put a message in there if you'd like to give them a little note. Something to keep in mind is you won't get a copy of this email that goes out to them when you share the document. So you might want to include yourself when you share a document so you get a copy of what's going out to the person. So same thing goes for folders. If you would like to share a folder, you can right click on that folder and just go to the share. And here is where you would put the person's email address and share it with them. Moving along. Oh, hyperlinks. You'll notice that when you see a URL, which is the address that the computer recognizes to find this particular space in your drive, it's very long, and a link like that might be too much, like to take up an email, or you might just want to simplify it. So you could do something called a hyperlink, meaning you can embed this in the name of something that you're sending out to people. So that sounds a little confusing. I'll show you what that looks like. So if I'm going to send an email, I will go to my ULIT Gmail. I will click compose, and I might send an email of this PowerPoint deck. Look at this PowerPoint deck on how to organize yourself with Google Drive. So once I have whatever text I'd like to share with someone, I want someone to see the PowerPoint deck. So that is what I want to create a hyperlink to. And I highlight those words, and I would right click. If I was in a regular document, for example, a Google document, I would right click. Here, I would just go to this down at the bottom. It looks like not a paperclip, a link. And here is where you would paste that URL. So what does that look like? I would open up the PowerPoint. I would highlight this whole thing. And now I would hit a Command C for a copy. I've copied this whole URL. I'd go back to my email and hit a Command V. And now that whole link was copied right there. And what I've done is I've created the hyperlink. So rather than have all of this appear in my email, I just quickly have this, and it links me right to the PowerPoint. If I was doing a Google document now, and I just want to create a link in there, that looks a little bit different. You would just have to right click. So I would type what I want it to be called, Google Drive PowerPoint, and I would highlight the whole thing, right click, and here you have an opportunity down at the bottom to click link. So I would go back to my PowerPoint, make sure that that's copied, come back here on the next tab, click apply, and now this is embedded within anything that I would be typing, whether it's on Microsoft Word or Microsoft Docs. Google Docs, you're able to embed a hyperlink. So it looks a little bit different in an email. Remember, if you'd like to include it in an email, you would just find the words, and then you would look for that little link. Insert link and paste what that URL is. If you're doing it in a document, however, that again is different. You would type your hyperlink word right there. When you right click, you have an opportunity to insert that link. And all right, so there's my document. I think that's pretty much all I can think about as far as when it comes to organizing yourself. There's something that I like to do, which is I use a scanner app on my phone. The one that I use is called Cam Scanner. And whenever I have any kind of paperwork that I know I might need, but I don't really know where to store, I just scan a photo of it and then I drag it over to my Google Drive in a folder on my drive. This way, if I'm at school or if I'm home or if I'm on my cell phone, I have access to it and I end up just throwing that paper away. So if you'd like to download Cam Scanner, there's a tutorial down here in the link, and you could just go to the App Store for iPhone or Android. And I think that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. You've got my school's Gmail, and you've got my personal Gmail that I've made where I organize all of my Google Drive folders. Okay, if you have any questions, I'm here. Thank you.